Follow along as we build a fitting tribute to the Land Rover Defender. This series is brought to you by LR Centre Limited and Frost Auto Restorers. And SIP Industrial Products. Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of our Land Rover Defender tribute build series, where we're creating from the ground up a vehicle that will serve as a tribute to the Land Rover Defender, the Land Rovers before its series vehicles, and the pre-production prototype Hue 166, and you can follow along every step of the way. I want to give you a quick update on what we've been doing this week. I've visited the Shotblasters, dropped off the stuff there, and we filmed an interview with the Shotblaster Mark from Pegasus Coatings. He will help you understand how shotblasting can fit in with your build, what you need to do to prepare items for shotblasting, and the benefits of using different media and things like that. So stay tuned for that. We've had loads more orders come in, loads more parts and things, so check out the mailbox section where you can find out what we've ordered and why. And I want to hear from you guys as well, because I'd like to know where you'd like to see this series go, anything you'd like ideas wise for the Land Rover. Let us know, put it in the comments below, and we'll take everything into consideration, because we're creating this for you, the FunRover YouTube community. So thanks for watching us and supporting us. If you want to support us any further, you can go to patreon.com/FunRover, where from as little as $1 per video, and you can set a limit per month of how much you want to donate. You can actually support our build, and you'll receive t-shirts and all kinds of things. Check out that page, it tells you all about the rewards, and that helps us greatly fit to our deadline of January the 1st, which is very quickly looming. We put another order in with lrparts.net, our supporters. We, some reason, lost the hubs from the Land Rover, the rear hubs. Didn't follow my own advice, take them off, photograph them, label them, organise them. Just took them off, can't find them. They're somewhere in the unit, hopefully, which I've turned upside down. The workshop's a bit of a mess again, but I couldn't find the hubs, so I've had to order more hubs. But I just added it onto another order that we had to put anyway, because we want to get a rolling chassis in the next 2 weeks. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, we have an order coming that will help us over the next few weeks greatly from SIP Industrial Products. It'll help us clean up old parts. That might give you a clue. We want to hear from you down below. Let us know any ideas, thoughts, contributions you can make to this series. But now I'm going to flip the chassis over because it's upside down. You might have noticed that, some of the eagle-eyed viewers in our painting video. And then we can get on with shotblasting and also stripping down some of the swivels. So first job of this week was to get the chassis flipped over right side up. There was a little more painting that I had to do on the top side, so I needed to spin it round. This is very doable even if you're on your own, but it's a bit fiddly and you'll have to be careful because you don't want to damage the fresh paint. You'll need an engine crane, trolley jack, axle stands and strops, as well as bow shackles. And again, you want to be very careful doing this. So I've used a bit of cardboard under each outrigger and the cross member so that I can slide it along the floor without causing any damage to it. I've attached the two shackles to the radius arm and trailing arm hull mounts on each side, and then that's allowed me to just lift the chassis up. We want to get it perpendicular to the floor, and then because we've used bow shackles in those circular holes, they adjust and they allow us to take it past perpendicular and start lowering it down the right way up. You want to be very gentle when you do this and just be extremely careful, maneuver it round slowly bit by bit, keep locking off the engine crane, adjusting. Make sure you've got steel toe caps on as well, because if your crane did fail, obviously this is very heavy and you wouldn't want to be underneath it in any way. The Frost chassis extreme pin is very tough. I've been impressed with it because even sliding it round carefully, you do manage to knock it and bump it on the engine crane itself, for example, and the paint held up very well. So all we need to do then is lower it down onto the axle stands slowly. When you're lifting the chassis, if you attach a strap from the offside radius armhole to the near side chassis outrigger tube or vice versa, then when you lift it up, it lifts the chassis really evenly. Otherwise, you do find it wants to lean either front to back or side to side as you lift it away from the stands it's rested on. Now we have to strip down the bulkhead. It needs stripping down completely. I've started by removing the steering column and the ignition barrel. I'm not going to show you how to do that due to security, but it's pretty obvious. The wiper mechanisms, they need unbolting. This should be a fairly easy job. Should be, being the imperative word, because in the end I had to bust out the grinder and cut them off. The end piece had actually seized in place, corroded on, and it would not budge, so I have to buy some new ones of those, which is a bit unfortunate. This foam gasket needs replacing. I next removed the gearbox tunnel adapter and the gasket behind that. It's well worth taking photos of each step as you dismantle things, labelling parts, organising them properly, as I found out last week when 2 of my hubs went missing and they cost around £50 each. Dope. The photos will help you see how everything fits back together when you come round to rebuilding. Then these acoustic covers and rubber grommets, make sure you keep the grommets. Things like this can be particularly specialist items because nobody ever really needs to replace them, and hence they are quite pricey because it's usually only a genuine item available with such a low demand for them. The heater box seal needs to come out, and again it's quite a specialist item, so do be careful with it. It should just pop out after a slight prise from a screwdriver or a trim removal tool. These plastic screw fixings, they need to come out too. Then I loaded the bulkhead into the Jag. The Jag is proving very helpful in this build. My only hope is that it doesn't snow before the Land Rover is finished, because I don't know how I'm going to get to the workshop. It's 20 minutes away. And the axles too, we'll put those in. They're all going to get blasted before painting so that they can be made to match other underbody components. The reason we had to strip everything down is because the rubbers and even seam sealer used at the factory can affect the shot blasting media, and you don't get as good a cut through the surface. So if you remove it, then you are dealing with the base layer of metal. We've come down to Pegasus Shotblasting and Coatings to find out more about shotblasting and how it can help you with your Land Rover rebuild or restoration.
Shotblasting is firing a media at a said object, whatever it be, with high pressure. Everything shotblasted is a way of getting perfect cleanliness on the item to be either A, wet painted or powder coated or whatever. It's the only way to ensure that all the grease has gone, dirt's gone, and you're left with a surface that's got a binding agent, so it's kind of, if you blast it, it'll get it to like an 80 grit sandpaper, so that the powder coating's got something rough to grab hold of when you bake it. So in essence, once it's cured and done its thing, it'll never come away from that surface. To blast apart, we're determined to firstly strip any bearings out, get as much grease off as we can. If it needs to go in the acid tank, which is a methylene chloride formic acid mix, that takes mostly all the other grease off, all the paint off, primer off, down to the bare metal. We wash it off, and then we're ready. We'll inspect it again, and then we'll ready. If we think it's ready enough, we'll blast it. If there's no problems with it, or breaking, or cracks, or anything that was welding, or anything before. Loads and loads of different medias, from walnut shell to glass, iron silicate, and garnet. Garnet's basically a sand that's got no silicon in it. It's only found in 2 places in the world, Australia and Bombay Bay, so it makes it quite expensive per tonne. Glass is obviously a renewable source, easy to get hold of, cheap to use, very, very clean. We're using iron silicate at the minute just because it's more abrasive. It can get to the Swedish standard, which is an SAE 2.5. The glass doesn't really want to do it because it's too soft. Garnet's good for it, but too expensive, so we found ourselves blasting with iron silicate. Yeah, powder coating's ultimately the thickness that you get on it, and because of its properties to be able to bend and move, a lot of twisting axles and parts and, you know, suspension. I mean, we powder coat a spring, so you can imagine, you know, the movement in a spring. It never cracks, anything like that. So it's really good UV protective as well. It doesn't lose its colour very easily, and it's just a hard wearing, you know, substance that you put on, you bake on, and it's just the thickness levels. They can be 100 to 200 times thicker than a wet painting system. Powder coating is it's basically plastic that's turned into a powder. When you put it on a vibrating blade, the resonance, so the particles bounce together, it turns it into what's called a fluidized bed. So when it goes fluidized, you can actually draw that up like a liquid with compressed air, and you draw it through the system. And the specialist gun that's just behind you there, it puts a positive charge on the particle coming out of the gun, and then you've got a negative on the barra. So basically it's a complete circuit, so you put the positive onto the negative, so you can get a uniform thickness on as well if you apply it right. The only problems we have is what's called the Faraday effect, which is into really, really super tight corners. So you get, you know, when you get into that edge there, that super tight,
it repels.
It repels, it won't go into it. It's as simple as that.
Right, had a lot more post again, as per usual. When you're building a Land Rover, you get very much used to your parcels coming every day. I mean, I used to get a lot of post before. Nothing compared to this. Is just half of what I received today. So let's have a look at some of the stuff we've ordered. Give you an idea what we're doing. This stuff, M1 protector. If you go on Defender2.net, the owners on there are pretty meticulous about keeping their Land Rovers well looked after, which is, you know, absolutely right. They tend to be Puma owners, so they've got quite nice new vehicles. They want to keep them that way, and they're very knowledgeable guys and girls. They recommend a product called ACF 50 spray, and it is a high penetrating dispersal spray you apply to nuts and bolts, and basically it prevents them from rusting any further. It's an anti-corrosion spray. It's very, very well rated, highly rated, but it's also quite expensive. It's about, I think it was £15 for a tin, a little bit smaller than this one when I looked on eBay. Well, I managed to get a deal for this stuff, which was for £17. So every nut and bolt, after we've copper slipped them or anti-seize compounded them, as we're putting everything back together, I'm also going to apply some of this onto the nut and onto the bolt head, and that will penetrate in there and provide us with better corrosion resistance, and also it's going to make those nuts and bolts last longer. So I'm going to try that on every single fixing we can do. So that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing how that works. Also, this stuff is German. So even if it isn't the proper ACF 50 spray, it's German, so you know it's good. We've got a tin of chassis paint, just a black satin paint that I can use in the spray gun. This I purchased because on some of the things like the radius arms, panhard rods, anything that needs refinishing, like the A-frame arms at the back, I want it to all to match, obviously. So I purchased some 2-pack chassis black satin paint, and that will probably do us everything we need to, and we'll have some left in case we ever get any scratches or anything like that we need to repair in the future. Okay, this is more etch primer. I bought this because I was that impressed with the etch primer we use on the chassis. I bought some more. It's really useful stuff to have. It will come in handy when we're working on the bodywork, because there are areas where the tub, for example, is corroded, and we've got the electrolysis happening in the bodywork. So I can sort that out and then treat any bare alloys or steels with this, which will act as a adhesion promoter, just as we used it on the chassis. So top stuff that, I was really impressed. Also, when you get the 2-pack one, it means that you can store it for theoretically indefinitely, as long as you don't open it. And because you haven't got the components already mixed together, then it doesn't begin to set and go off. So I got some zinc 182 primer. This is going to come in handy for bodywork, and again, painting things like the radius arms and what have you. It's a very high zinc content, zinc 182. It's a rust inhibiting primer, so it works really well. People recommend it for bodywork. I've used it in the past particularly liked it. Not quite as good as a cold galv spray, but it is significantly cheaper and easy to apply, just like a primer. So that's good. I'm glad that's come. We've got some cellulose thinners, nothing special about those, great for cleaning your gun, thinning out things like zinc 182. I've also been stripping down the hub assemblies as we're fitting wolf rims. So we'll need to put in longer wheel nut studs, which means taking the old ones out, and they just simply hammer out. They can be quite seized in place over time, so they need a good whack from the hammer. Lump hammer works really well. Then round the back of the hubs, I haven't yet taken out the rear seal, so you just prise that out using a breaker bar. The wheel bearing too, that needs removing, so we'll put those to one side, but we do have new ones to replace them. Then the old bearing races need to come out. When you buy wheel bearing kits, you should get new bearing races because they wear to the shape of the old one at the same time as the old one, so that if you put a new one in, then you could have a mismatch in terms of tessellation. So they just tap out if you're very careful using a chisel. The rear swivel seal needs removing from each swivel housing. It's fitted with 7mm bolts, so I've had to break out the 1/4 inch ratchet, which is not used all that often in my workshop. Then I've removed the filler plug, the steering stop lock bolt, the swivel housing pins. We should have some new ones of those in the previous order that we made, so we can just replace all those. But we're saving everything just in case we need it for reference or just as an example to show you guys. So it's well worth keeping things until you're definitely sure you no longer need them. Anything that can be will be cleaned up using the order that we mentioned that's coming from SIP Industrial, but we won't say any more about that. And the swivel housing cast piece, we will be using the same satin black chassis paint we're using on all the underbody components. I'm just removing literally every bolt, nut and fixing from it so I can sand it down, grind it down using some wire cups. Very carefully, especially on the surfaces that have gaskets fitted to them, so that then I can prepare those for paint next week. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of FunRover TV. You can see our last episode here, and also check us out on funrover.com. We are at FunRover on Twitter and Instagram, and we're also on Facebook.